Welcome to the Mental Fitness Podcast. Today's entrepreneurs are mental athletes that have to know about the mind and how to keep it fit. Our goal is to increase our resilience against stress and anxiety, optimize our productivity, motivation, and optimism by learning about the human mind through psychology, neuroscience, and human behavior. I'm your host Ozan. I'm a founder who has experienced the challenges of launching and growing a business and a keen student of human behavior over the last 15 years. I'll share with you what I know and learn. Hundreds of impactful, behavior-changing ideas are waiting to be discovered by us. Let's begin now. Welcome to the Mental Fitness Podcast for entrepreneurs. I'm your host Ozan. And today's question is, when to go all in? When should you go all in, and when should you hedge your bets as an entrepreneur or as a startup founder? So building a startup or going on the path of entrepreneurship, it is a very different situation than gambling for a variety of reasons. The biggest being the role of execution and the way you spend your effort. But there's a huge but. Thinking about starting up a company, especially in and around the tech businesses, makes you think about risk in ways you've never had before. And there are huge similarities about understanding risk, how risk works with building a risky tech business or becoming an entrepreneur, going to the path of higher resistance in some circumstances. There are a lot of similarities between that and gambling. Although it's very different, there are some similarities. So go back to the last years of your university education, or if you're at that stage now, that's okay too, and reflect upon how you think about your future decisions. Any thought about planning your future is actually a risk assessment that you automatically make, followed by a bet that you place. So if you decide to go to a university, then this is in a way a bet, because there are some costs associated with that in terms of the energy, the time, the finances you spend, followed by a certain expectancy of reward. So there is like a bet situation going on there as well. But let's focus on what happens in most of the usual circumstances after the university. So you might make a safe bet, become a dentist, for example, and choose that as your occupation. Or you might make a very risky bet. The risky bet might look like you can shoot for the stars and set a goal to be a famous singer or a graphic artist or a sports player. So where does entrepreneurship and building a startup fall within this risk scale almost? Where does quitting your job to focus on your startup idea fall again within this scale of risk taking? Well, this all depends on how much risk is right for you given the right circumstances. So here are one of the most popular few routes that I've seen. So the top 4 routes people usually follow. So number 1 is build a startup full-time straight out of university. Some people follow this. This is a risky path, but it can also be very rewarding. Number 2, get a few years of working experience and work in larger organizations. So get some insights about how business works, build some core skills, and then quit your job to build a startup full-time. So this is the second path. The third path is work in larger organizations and build a side business and have the potential of jumping into the side business full-time at a certain point. And the fourth one is choose the entrepreneurial lifestyle where you can have ad hoc projects from time to time, some consultancy work. You can take part in other people's projects and earn some income from there. And as a part of that mix, build products on the side, invest. So this is basically the strategy of hedging your bets in a way. So the right one depends on your specific risk tolerance and where you are in life. For me personally, the fourth path was the right one. And it was the right path for me because it very well fit into what I call a life design. So within my mix, there is a company that is focused on edtech through video learning and episodic learning, as we call that is located in Turkey. So that is one of the businesses that I own. I'm a co-founder of. I do spend some of my time on that. On the other hand, there is Startups of London that I'm building. It takes the biggest chunk out of my week. It's one of the big bets for me as well. But other than that, from month to month, I have other consultancy works or other ad hoc projects that land in my lap. So because I try to balance these out, this is the most robust structure for me. But I also have very close friends who are in the third category, so work in larger organizations, and they have their side businesses, and they usually work on their side hustles on the weekends, during the weekdays when they have time. So the growth trajectory of the business, when you take that path, is much slower naturally, but it's also a very, very risk diverse approach. So if I were to order these four in terms of risk, from highest risk to lowest risk. So the highest risk would be to build a startup full-time out of university. The second highest risk would be get 5 years of experience and work in large organizations and then quit for full-time focus on the startup. The relatively low risk scenario is the entrepreneur lifestyle, where there's still risk, but you balance that out with consultancy work, with multiple projects, and have that flexibility, just like the four legs of the table. So if one of them doesn't work out, you always have something to lean on. And the least risk, the least risky one is the third option, which is work in large organizations full-time and have a side business. So the right one depends on you. The first one is usually a choice of privilege. 50% of the people in my observation, and I have worked with many people as a mentor and as a consultant, and as a career coach as well sometimes. So I have some exposure to this, and from what I have observed, 50% of the people who actually go on this direction of the first one, so building a startup straight out of university, 50% of these people give up very early in the 2 or 3 months window. So this is actually a good decision by them, which means they understand the size of that immense challenge in front of them in clear terms and decide it's not really right for them. So the other percent that keeps going, 90% of that 50% fails. But those who succeed, so it's like the odds are not tilted much in your favor when you choose this path. But if you do manage to become successful, then you have a good momentum to follow up with your second or third business. So it can help you grow. And sometimes if you have the financial resources, if you have the right type of network, the education, this might be the perfect path for you. But just know the risks of that. A core heuristic to follow while thinking about these risks and decisions is never take such risks that might put you out of the game forever. So the idea is, yes, take risks, but don't risk your life. Take risks, but make sure you can return to the table to play again and make other bets. So the first few years, or at least the first 3, will definitely be a tumultuous, rocky ride for any startup. It's a quite difficult journey. An important idea here is about entrepreneurial readiness, and is about having the right type of tools and knowing the right type of stuff so you can manage your mental well-being, so you have that mental fitness. Think about this in terms of knowing which types of exercise to do to prepare for a marathon, versus not knowing any of them and trying to discover it by yourself. You would most likely injure yourself, or you would not be able to complete that marathon, and potentially lose some self-respect. So the idea behind this is be prepared, understand the risks. So you might have all the technical, financial and people resources. But if you haven't taken big risks before, the biggest question you have to ask yourself is about your mental fitness. Why is this? Like, the core reason for this is very clear. A startup will lose money before it makes any, right? So you will more than likely be in a spot someday where you have already spent a huge volume of time. So you have the sunk cost of time, energy, and also money that you've spent with little return to show for them. So will you be able to handle that when that time comes? Ask yourself that question. You will employ people with your enthusiasm and belief in a future vision. That's perfect. But that vision will change as many of them do. The company will potentially pivot. It will not be your first guess at what makes that business successful. So inevitably, you will disappoint some of those people. Are you ready for that? You'll need to scrap a lot of hard work to pivot for better customer demand areas, but also will fail a couple of times. So, and at that point, there will be no assurance of success around the corner. So imagine that situation. You've already spent a lot of time. Some of the things that you've tried didn't work. You're running out of resources. There's no assurance of success. What will you feel then? Will you be able to handle that? So if you receive an investment, then it's not going to be easier. A huge burden will be on your shoulders to satisfy the investors. Will you be able to manage those tough relationships with finesse and still be able to keep your composure while dealing with these investors? So will you be able to handle that? Do you have the mental fitness to cope with all that is coming your way? So asking these questions in advance and thinking about your risk tolerance, your mental fitness, the tools you have will definitely 100% increase your odds at success. And the core idea, going back to our very, very core idea, place bets, take risks, but never place bets or take risks that can potentially drive you out of the game forever. And that's how you lose. Hope this is useful to some of you. I know it's been useful to me in making good risk judgments and good decisions, high quality decisions. Hope this is useful to you. If this was, please feel free to share it with other people who might also find this useful. And again, thank you very much for tuning in. I'll talk to you in the next episode of the Mental Fitness Podcast. I'm your host Ozan, and take care.